Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2023 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the Artistic Director, and Nina Strike, the Founder and Festival Director, as we welcome in conversation the director and producer behind the film A Clean Slate. So welcome now Tran Wong Calvin and Christy Kendall behind the film A Clean Slate.
Terrific to be with you. And let's start. Calvin, please tell us about the film.
Clean Slate is about a woman's work, her life work, helping others get their records cleaned after they've committed crimes, perhaps 10 years ago, even 20 years ago. It's her work helping people get their lives back, really. If you have a criminal record, it can affect your ability to find housing, it can affect your ability to get hired to any job that isn't basic retail. And that clearly has effects for being someone who can support a family, being able to support your kids. It has such large life ramifications and generational ramifications. And at the heart of this story is this woman, Shanyelle, who is helping people get their records cleaned. And ironically, tragically, she cannot get her record expunged from defending herself in a domestic abuse situation. Like, it's a whole technical issue with the law in Wisconsin. She just is not eligible for expungement, even though clearly she has shown that she is rehabilitated into life, even if you could even say that she wasn't possibly a peaceful citizen beforehand. But she cannot get her record expunged. That affects her life. And at the same time, she's helping others. Wisconsin is currently considering legislation to reform its expungement process and basically expand eligibility for people. It's been a long-winded political process because there have been several political fire moments in Wisconsin, like Kenosha and Waukesha, that are complicated and they tend to hold back progress in many ways. They're very close. They've had unanimous support in the House, and it's a very technical issue in the Senate right now. I'm very hopeful, especially with this documentary, hoping to highlight this and the impact on people, that we can push that through in Wisconsin and even reform processes across that country, because some states don't even have an expungement process at all. So it's a very important issue, I think, that we can expand for Americans across the country.
This idea of the way that Shanyelle takes that fire, the injustice against her, she is, this woman who has been trying to do the right thing, protect her child, protect her life. And I think that so many women find themselves in positions like that. And so that was part of what really I thought was exceptional about her as a character, is that you have this fire, you have this deep injustice, and instead of dwelling in that space, she uses it as a propellant towards justice for others. And that's what's really kind of showcased in the film, is how she really has turned that into a fire to change the law for people around her, and maybe someday for herself.
I do want to focus in on Shanyelle for people who haven't seen the film yet. She is such a charismatic figure, even though she can't herself receive the fruits of the kind of work that she's doing. She is really tireless in doing it. How did you come to find out about her, and how did you gain her trust to tell this story?
I've volunteered with a lot of nonprofits throughout, from high school through college, dealing with particularly criminal justice reform issues. And a friend of mine, Jameer Kwan, he knew Shanyelle, and Shanyelle has been trying to get this story of hers public. She keeps trying to find people who can help her create the video, and she is such a firebrand. She has had this vision and she wants to get it out, and she wants to tell the world about how life-changing expungement is. And so her original idea was a bit more of a social experiment documentary to show how someone before and then after expungement, how their lives dramatically changed. And so during the pandemic, October 2020, I flew over to Milwaukee and stayed with her for a little bit and just kind of recorded, got a sense of what was going on there. The story was coming a bit more clear to me throughout that. Wait, I think Shanyelle has a very interesting story that I think illustrates everything that she's talking about. On top of which, yeah, there's plenty of space to record her stories that she encounters doing her work. And Shanielle and I mean, we hit it off immediately. One thing that really unites us is that my brother had his expungement for a senior prank he did back when he was a senior in high school. It got trumped up really bad, and he got a misdemeanor from that. And he did his work, those next 5 years to make sure that he could get his expungement, because Michigan actually has a pretty solid expungement system. And 5 years later, he got his expungement, and that clearly transformed his life, because he was able to go to graphic design college. He was able to have his career. He's now, I believe, the head of marketing at a furniture company in Holland. So I don't think that would be possible if he had to, on every background check that he applied to, had to say that I have committed a crime like that. He shouldn't have to, because he was an 18-year-old, basically a kid, doing something silly. So I knew the power of expungement, and I shared that with Shanielle, and that's part of why we bonded so well. I kept that story around. I didn't really have any funding to kind of build that out into something. I pitched it to this organization that I've been a part of since high school, the Moving Picture Institute, who support film initiatives in advancing causes for human flourishing, human freedom. And this is huge when we're talking about expungement, being freed from the shackles of that, because it's like Shanielle says, if you don't have an end to your sentence, it's like you're always being punished. It's like you're always still in prison, in a sense, without the chains, but you're not allowed to do a lot of things still. The MPI, they brought it through a documentary workshop that I was able to be a part of, and at the end of that, they felt that this was a story worth telling, and so they helped support this film, and they got me connected with Christy here, who's been my mentor since. And just telling the story has been quite an experience, because I've done documentaries since high school for sure, but nothing on this level, nothing with this kind of personal stake, I suppose, aside from a documentary about my dad's refugee journey, which is a whole other story. But just like being able to grow as a filmmaker with this opportunity has been just incredible. And again, for an issue this important, I think it's just that I felt very much motivated to put my whole heart and soul into this one.
I think one of the key things that we had to wrestle with initially was like, what was the structure of this going to look like? Who were our main characters going to be with the amount of time that we had? How were we going to think about telling that story in a way that would relate to as broad an audience as possible, making sure that there was diversity, that there was relatability, that it felt really approachable. Honestly, expungement affects so many more people than we really think about. The criminal system touches so many people's lives, and the ripple effects of not being able to get a job, not being able to get an apartment, never having restitution be fully paid to society. What is that? And so I think we were really wrestling with all those ideas, even in the character selection. And I thought that Tran showed so much like discipline and thoughtfulness as we were like structuring. Calvin is he is an incredible talent. We're going to see incredible things from him in his career, let me tell you.
The mission of the Global Peace Film Festival is to inspire people to do something about what they've seen. So when people see this film, what can they do to help the issue?
I think we are having quite a national moment on these topics of crime, and then of course the expanded topics of inequality, racial injustice. There's a lot to unpack here for sure. I think the main thing that we have to remember, despite all the purported rise in crime or whatnot, that obviously people don't want crime to happen in amidst their streets, and they want to be tough on crime kind of thing, is that expungement is not about being weak on crime by any means, and reforming our criminal justice system is not about being lax on crime. It's about making sure that when people finish paying for their crime and having an emotional human cost on it, financial well-being, their family well-being for the punishment, that they should have the opportunity to return to society. I think that gives them skin in the game for their own rehabilitation. If you commit a crime and there is a way back to your normal life, there is a way to be able to legally say no on the job application or the housing application when they ask about your criminal record. if you have that opportunity to go back to your normal life, you would take every opportunity to make sure that you show up to the meetings, you show up to the bills that you have to pay, back to the courts or whatnot. Like, there is a real skin in the game to rehabilitate yourself and make sure that this doesn't happen to you again. And that's how we actually address crime, I believe. A real criminal justice system that makes sense, that is actually sensible and rational and reasonable, is the best effective way, I think, to actually getting ourselves back on track, especially in the national conversation on criminal justice reform. I met with so many people from so many different walks of life, and not a single one of them said that they want to go stay in crime. A lot of them said how easy it could have been to go back into crime because they, while you're struggling and you can only get like a minimum wage job here and there, and even at those minimum wage jobs, the boss can take advantage of you. And especially if you're a woman, they can your boss can take advantage of you sexually for I will expose you if you don't. Like, there's so many weaknesses and vulnerabilities to the people caught in this system where, look, they all want to get out of it. They don't want to go back to this world of crime. They don't want to stay in this world of crime. That's even the saying that they were in the world of crime, really, aside from being at their worst time and getting caught for it. And our effective response to actually defeating or combating crime isn't about making it worse by arresting more people and filling our prisons more and sending them back into society, but without their rights, back for themselves and for their family, creating a whole generation of poverty, perhaps. The real way that we get our country back out of that kind of mindset is to really have a good conversation about rationalizing and making our criminal justice system reasonable, making it so that way people can take back their lives and provide for your family. I mean, so many of these people that I talk to, they have family. They don't want to leave their family behind. They don't want to let their family stay in these tough positions forever. Obviously, for like a lot of people who talk about being hard on crime, family is a big motivating factor for them in the ballot box. And I feel like if we all understood just the human impact on the children and the broader family here that expungement touches, we wouldn't have a question about it. We would know that, yes, we need to give them an off-ramp from the world of pain that they're in, the world of poverty that they're in. We need to get them back into regular life again so that they can take care of their families. There's so much there that I wish people knew, and that's really what the documentary, I hope, is helping people to understand the great human cost at the core of this.
The number one thing that prevents recidivism in this country is having and being able to maintain a stable job. So that's like having the skills, having the job readiness, and then not having this ball and chain of a record to follow you around for every job you ever want to apply to. And so this is actually why in the film showcases this is a bipartisan issue, because that's just going to increase public safety. It's going to lower the number of people who are going to prison again. And it's just about like human decency also. Don't we all deserve a second chance? We arrest and put in cages more people than any country in this world. We need to start thinking about all the ways that we can honor the humanity of people who are our brothers and sisters who are coming out of being on the inside. And thinking about how to give people a real second chance, and thinking about it in a way where you can do it in a bipartisan way, where you're saying like public safety is tantamount and really important to all of us, and honoring the humanity of folks who have served their time is really important. So I think public officials, programs, all the stuff, it's a big issue, and all of us doing our little part, I think, is what we got to do in order to change our criminal system, to make it one that is a criminal justice system.
What can people watching this interview and also coming to the festival and seeing the film, what can they do to support the film and support your work?
I want this film to be shown at every state capital possible. And I mean, look, it's not a right enshrined in our Bill of Rights, so it's not a national issue. This is a state-by-state issue, but that's why every state capital should be playing this, and legislators should know about the cost here. Economically, this is costing the state in so many ways, from the lack of jobs and the ability to train people and get them geared up for the labor force in the future. Some states don't even have expungement, so there's a level of engagement and education that I think most people need to know about this process. I think the second biggest way is people are out there suffering who don't know that they could get expunged. They don't even know this process exists. And if they knew and they pushed for it and like, okay, I'm going to get my record expunged, and they applied for it, then public leaders would have the numbers to say, oh, wow, in our state, several 100,000 people apply for an expungement every year. This is actually a living program. Because right now it's like, oh, this is a small program, this expungement program, it doesn't even work then because no one applies for it, kind of thing. Well, that's because a lot of people don't know that they're even eligible or this program exists in their state. So just by doing it, just by engaging in it and getting your record expunged, the numbers actually grow, and then the state legislators and public officials actually see that, like, wow, this is actually a program worth investing in more, because people are actually engaging in it. It's kind of like, you know, getting a library card. If you don't get a library card, they won't fund the library. So you just like, you have to engage and you have to get it. And I wish more people who are looking for opportunities and they have a criminal record and they don't even know it, they should go and check and make sure that they can get their rights back.
That's a wonderful note to end on. I want to thank you both for this film, because I think if people watching this talk today seek this film out and then tell 10 other people to watch it. Calvin, one of your words is education process that needs to be done. There are strong arguments for the moral argument, the family argument, the public safety argument, and even an economic argument that we are not achieving what we think we are. And unfortunately, I think too many people have a false narrative about these criminal justice issues that comes out of their own fear of the situation. But this film goes so far to explain that in a way that is very relatable. So I thank you for bringing this film to us. We're so glad to be able to program it and share it at the upcoming film festival. Thank you again, and we'll see you at the next Glow.